Hi, everybody. I wanted to go over our last two research assignments a little bit, research assignment number 4 and research assignment number 5. This week, in week 7, we'll be doing research assignment number 4. And this is an opportunity for you to share the knowledge that you've been building while doing your research with your classmates. So I'm going to go over some specifics that are in the assignment instructions and elaborate on those a little bit. So you might actually want to open those assignment instructions in a different window so you can follow along while you're listening to me and watching this video. So first, I want to say I've been really impressed with some of the topics that you've chosen and the research that you've done so far with your book and video sources, and now most recently your article sources. And I'm especially impressed with some of the specific pieces of evidence that you found in those sources that you have identified as useful for helping you answer your research question. You're going to be building on that for research assignment number 4, where you're going to, based on the research, based on the evidence that you found, you're going to be writing a thesis statement in answer to your research question or questions. So for example, if my research questions were, what are the advantages and disadvantages of having a pet? And to what degree do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? My thesis statement might end up being something like the emotional and quality of life advantages of having a pet outweigh the disadvantages, which are primarily related to the cost, something like that. And then in the next part of the assignment, I would defend that thesis statement. So I would use evidence from my sources to show why I have drawn that conclusion in answer to my research questions. So you're going to be using the 3 sources that you already found, unless I asked you to replace those sources. The book source from the library, the audio-visual source, most of you chose a video, some chose podcasts, and the periodical article from the library. So you will need to find evidence in those sources that support the thesis statement that you are making. And you can paraphrase that evidence, you can quote that evidence directly, but in a paragraph, you're going to be defending your thesis statement using that evidence. So as you know, whenever we use sources, you need to cite those sources. So at the end of your discussion post, you're also going to have a works cited list that lists your citations for each of those sources. So those also, you've already done the research, you've already done the citations in your worksheets for the other research assignments. So unless you needed to make some edits to that based on my feedback, you should already have the citation for the source ready to go and just put them in alphabetical order by the author's last name or whatever the first word is in the citation if there is no author listed. And that would go at the end of your post in a works cited list. So that's the first part. The second part 2 of your first post to this discussion is to, in another paragraph, this one's about 150 to 200 words. I'm looking for about 250 words in the first part. In the second part, there are questions in the instructions for you to answer that are just asking you to reflect on the research process itself. And there are, let me count, 6 different bullet points for sets of questions. I need you to address at least 3 of those sets of questions. You don't have to do all of them, but you need to thoroughly address at least 3. So some of the bullet points have more than 1 question mark in it. So I want to make sure that it's clear that you're addressing 3 of the bullet points, 3 of those sets of questions. And then for this discussion, you will reply to 2 of your classmates' posts when they're presenting their research. Maybe you learned something interesting from a classmate and it got you thinking about a topic that that you already knew about or didn't know about, got you thinking about it in a different way. If you do refer to specific information from a source, either a source that you used if your topics are related, or a source that your classmate mentioned, then put a citation in your reply as well, put a works cited list. If you're speaking more generally, responding to what they've said, you don't need to include a citation. But whenever you directly quote or paraphrase from a source, definitely include a citation. So hopefully that's a clear rundown of what I'm looking for in research assignment number 4. I will actually, let me say a couple more things. I really encourage you to do something creative with this. You don't have to, but you're welcome to do an audio recording or a video recording, or a slide deck, presenting slides while doing an audio recording over them. It doesn't have to just be text in a discussion post. If you want to do something more creative, if you want to use images in your post, that's fine too. Make sure that I won't ask you to cite an image if you want to use an image, because we haven't gone over that, but I do, if you use an image, at least put a link to it so that you're giving your reader an opportunity to find that image. Not exactly like a citation, but just something that's acknowledging where that image came from. For all of your other sources that were the 3 required sources, you do have to cite them. So yeah, do something creative if you want. It's up to you how you want to present the information. And that goes for the discussion of the research process as well. The one part that has to be written is the works cited list. So if you do a PowerPoint, for example, you could put that works cited list on your last slide, or you could attach the PowerPoint to your discussion post and put the works cited within the discussion post. It's up to you how you do that, but the works cited does have to be written out. The other parts of the assignment could be audio or video recording. Okay, that's it for assignment number 4. Assignment number 5 is not exactly optional, but if you have earned enough points after doing assignment number 4 this week to reach 350 points, which is the passing score for this class, you do not have to do research assignment number 5. Research assignment number 5 is an annotated bibliography, and that is where you would have your works cited list, all of the citations in alphabetical order, and each citation would be followed by a summary of the source, a defense of its credibility, so pieces of evidence for credibility, and then a discussion of how it was useful in answering your research question. So you've already done that work in your previous research assignments, in research assignment number 2 and research assignment number 3. You've already identified what the source was about, how you know it's credible, and what are some useful pieces of information. So if you do the annotated bibliography for research assignment number 5, you're just going to be pulling that from those other 2 assignments, pulling the citation, pulling the summary of the source. The paragraph needs to be in narrative form, so you might have to do a little writing to just make it flow more easily. And then make sure they're in alphabetical order. And then, but basically you've done that work already. You don't have to find new sources again, unless I requested that you revise your sources because they weren't the right kind or they were too old or whatever. So that's the annotated bibliography. And again, this is a pass, no pass class. 350 points is a passing score. So look at your grades, especially after you've gotten my feedback on research assignment number 4. If you're already at 350 points, you don't have to do the annotated bibliography research assignment number 5. But everyone has to do research assignment number 4. Okay, I hope that's clear. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions, and have a good couple weeks. Just 2 weeks left in the class. You're almost there.